Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom Hazard, to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
Welcome back to Purchasing Truth. I'm Tom Hazard with your host, Bill Stierle. And Bill, I'm excited to continue what we talked about last time, or at the very end, which really has to do with the difference between a value-based communication and a needs-based. Isn't that right?
Yeah, there's how do you get your values and your needs to line up? How do you move away from the language of judgment or criticism or blaming or one-upping? A lot of tragic narratives inside the debate. Lot of struggle with the ability to communicate nuance, Trump keeps his message very clean and clear, and it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong, good or bad. But it's clean and clear. You're for us, you're against us. I mean, to think about a high-level executive creating, an enemies list, which Nixon did. Am I on an enemies list? And what does that mean to be on an enemies list? And do we really do that in American government? Was a question that was asked during the Nixon Watergate trial. And they literally, the guy pulled it out, the guy from the IRS pulled the list out and said, here's the list I was given. And I did nothing with this list for the year and a half. It's been in my vault ever since, proving that Nixon did develop an enemies list and that he was trying to use the government to take advantage of his rivals. Can't do that.
Well, and it's very interesting. I mean, so in the very beginning here of this episode, you made a very good point that, Trump is very clear in his messaging and consistent. And at the same time, I don't know if you meant to say this, but I also, it seems very clear that Trump may very well have his own enemies lists. And certainly after the impeachment verdict was rendered by the Senate, he started swinging the axe at all these people that he sees as disloyal.
Yeah. How can you not emulate any further the lack of the authoritarian, and not move him into the comparison to an authoritarian leader, to get rid of somebody that testified truthfully against him, and how that person's not protected.
Or I would like to add to that, Bill, to say testified truthfully, period. I don't know that the against him really matters here.
True.
It wasn't
That's
even
right.
that.
Great catch.
It wasn't that Vindman was out to get the president. This guy was committed to integrity and telling the truth, as I think most of the other witnesses were.
Right.
Who's the English woman who's now?
Yeah, she was an all-star. Yeah, I'm trying to remember her name too.
Yeah,
and she was an all-star because she going like, this is it. And a lot of those folks, the reason why they haven't been fired is that they resigned before the opportunity to get fired. If Vindman would have retired, if his it would have been interesting to see if you would have fired his brother anyways, and that would have been really upsetting, because how do you fire an ethics person, an ethics attorney? How do you do that? And the ship not saying something's wrong here, we're sinking over here. Well, it's interesting what has happened, in the communication between, the politicians. Even on the debate stage, they were really struggling with this same thing called, how do I be in integrity? How do I tell the truth? But yet, how do I score points? How do I, do that? And whether it's Vindman trying to, and doing and following his integrities and his ethics, or somebody on the debate stage, following their communication strategies, none of that looks like leadership. None of that looks like leadership. It just doesn't. So that makes it hard. It really does.
It is really disappointing to see, everybody's just trying to score points, knock the other guy down, raise themselves up. That's not really what a debate is supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a more meaningful, substantive discussion about, well, I would say issues and values and vision and all these things, but really they're all competing for a soundbite, don't you think?
Yeah, and they're also trying to create an artificial soundbite instead of having it ready to go, and that is something that is really problematic too. Is that if you're trying to create place for a joke, or and it's not natural and it's not second nature, and you're maneuvering language around to get there. And even one of the late night talk shows really got into that and saying, wow, it looks like Bloomberg just spent time going to this exit and this exit and this exit and this exit, and now he's over here, like how did, like, and literally they used all of the New York subway and exits of the freeways and stuff as directionals, and he really struggled there, and he struggled with his jokes, and he struggled with his ability to connect informally, and I probably wouldn't have done that. I probably wouldn't have coached him to make an attempt to do that. I wouldn't have coached him to, you did junkie last time, why don't you just be friendly with everybody and try to be and regrettably so unprepared and so unskilled in the ability to communicate in a way that's going to provide the level of leadership that's needed, and be thoughtful with your responses. Like you and I are very thoughtful with our responses, and when we make a mistake, we pull back, and then we re-engage, and we keep it at a level that still has the frustration and aggravation and irritation that we normally experience in our bodies when we talk about something that's opposite of us, but not to the place of overwhelmed, angry, aggravated, irritated. Most of those people on the stage did not have the ability to manage their emotions. Therefore, they just started blurting out things and raising their hand instead of just going like, listen, this is what stable leadership looks like, and it doesn't look like what everybody's doing right now. Stable leadership to me looks like, and then have your sentence ready. Everybody else is now looking and going like, how did they just do that? Well, they picked what the primary thing that was not happening and spoke directly to it. This is not happening. Stable leadership is not happening on this stage.
Isn't that amazing how Bloomberg seemed to be staying above the fray, taking the high road, with his ad campaign over the last couple months, and not engaging in the fight in the first few primary contests. And now he's been sucked into the debate, being so unprepared. Doesn't that make him seem a bit more elitist than he already was? Just that he's so unprepared. You had all this time, you have all this money, you look one way in all these commercials, in this high road up here, and then you get to the proportionality of your speaking unprepared. Oh my gosh.
Crazy. It's amazing. It's professional. He is Let me just go and pick a really terrible team this year. He is the Cincinnati Bengals, who only won a couple games this year or so, um, doing their marketing and campaign for their 2019 campaign at the beginning of the campaign. Here's what we have. We have Angel Delta here. We have this player here. Look at how this. We have this there. And then as soon as they hit the field the first time, the cooperation's not there, the collaborations, the interface between the team, the defense is not ready, everything's not ready, and this is the way he's showing up. I was going to say that he was a first year college student in the NFL and walked on the stage and just got his butt beat twice now, by other seasoned people, and there's not and you've got to be ready for somebody that is coming at us in these various different levels, and also realizing that we've got to have a better leadership communication than the one that regrettably they're bringing. The major reason why that Bernie is in the position is because he is matching his campaign, his on the stage performance, the way he is in a rally, the way his ad campaigns are going, are all in alignment. They're congruent. Now, the rub on him is you've been talking about this stuff for 30 years, and as Joe Biden would say, you haven't gotten anything done. His best sentence back to, gosh, I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned that the greater vision for America has not been completed yet. Because on your watch, Joe Biden, here's how many Americans died because you guys didn't get health care done. I'm just saying I want to get health care done. Now, it doesn't mean that you and Barack Obama didn't take a step to do your best effort with the fierce opposition that you had. But I got 100,000 people. I got 2 million people right now behind me. I got 4 million people behind me that are interested in caring for every single American, not what half of the people on this stage is saying. We're still only going to carry for the ones that can afford it. Is that the way we want to go forward, Joe? Is that the way we want to go forward, Bloomberg? Pete, really? You don't think the numbers are there? Why don't you just do the math? Because your math is not really adding up. Because you're trying to keep the status quo in place and making this an add-on. This is not an add-on. This is the foundation of who we are as a people. Now I'm not even running for president, but I'm starting to sound pretty good.
That was a really good response that Bernie certainly could use. And what's really, I would say, ironic about that is here, the Obama administration, which Joe Biden was an integral part of, especially, I believe, in the passage of the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, is that they are largely credited with eliminating pre-existing conditions, with getting 20 million more people healthcare than had it. Now, there's still at least another 20 or 30 million people in this country that still don't have it, but you just made it sound, when you were responding as if you're Bernie, you just made it sound like what they did wasn't really very good, and this is what needs to happen for America. That was pretty brilliant spin, and spin is one way to put it.
I mean, it's an advocacy. Of it.
Yeah.
Framing and advocacy. I just channeled, my internal progressive. I mean, what is an internal progressive? Somebody that sees a vision of something that is a best practice in some countries, and their best practice is to act in this way, to care for every single person inside their country, no matter who they are, how they got there. Somehow they want to be in our country and they want to be a citizen of ours. let them be a citizen, and here are some of the things that you get for being the citizen, and picking our tomatoes, picking our strawberries for the first generation. Your kids get a better shot at it because they get a chance to get education, and we get, a talented person that really appreciates being there and honoring the sacrifice their parents made as an immigrant. Oh my gosh, that is where it needs to go. That's where it needs to go. It's like, it's like, you got to appreciate the person that bring you here, not saying I'm glad I'm on the top of the hill. And yeah, it's because we were smart, not because we got support, as if that's not what Trump got from his dad, and the advantages that he took advantages that were all available to him. I mean, there was all these advantages that, that the city and the state gave to the Trump senior.
Sure. Now, the interesting thing with this healthcare discussion is that, back when, Obama was president early on in his first term, and they were looking at, getting healthcare done, they actually wanted a public option too, but they couldn't get it passed through Congress. And the interesting thing is, I think it's interesting to see where the goalpost has moved on the conservative side, on the Republican side of things, because they didn't want the Affordable Care Act to pass at all. And now that it happened, they actually tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act a few times, and that hasn't worked. Now,
almost over a couple of hundred times they've tried to repeal it.
Yeah, they've tried to repeal it, and that hasn't worked. And clearly, the American public, if you look at all the polls, is in favor of health care in a big, big way. Right. So they're sort of arguing, a not a popular argument here. And now that the Affordable Care Act exists, and we're talking about either a public option or doing Medicare for all, something completely, different, you've got the Republicans just trying to keep that from happening, saying, no, what's wrong with the system we got? They're no longer have a lot of support for repealing the Affordable Care Act. They're just trying to keep it from getting to this universal health care thing.
That's right.
And so it's interesting. There's a lot more support in the country, and I think in Congress, for, all right, let's leave Affordable Care Act alone, maybe improve it or fix what's wrong with it in a few different ways, rather than completely replace it with something new. And then there's obviously a lot of people who think, no, it didn't go far enough. We need to provide healthcare to everybody, whatever that takes. And it actually may be more affordable if you do universal healthcare.
The money's available. The money is available for everybody to have healthcare. The impact on the insurance companies and their new roles, they'll have to change the roles. The policies will need to be rewritten. The identities would need to change. The how they're going to stay in the profit space will change. We need everybody. We need everybody on board. It's not. I mean, the fantasy as government takeover means you're going to hire all government employees. No, that's not what's happening. What's happening is all the people from those different insurances that have those expertise will get rehired and in a position of strength, to get maybe not all of the top executives that have been siphoning off all the money won't get rehired. They're going to have the worst part of it. All the type, so you were a type executive in, whatever organization, and you're making $500,000 a year. Yeah, you don't have a job. Those guys are going to lose their jobs. But see, the thing is that they still have a business mindset to go, and they can have just a fine life and a fine career at any other major company, and the talent will move around with no problem.
Yeah, the idea of for-profit medical industry or insurance industry is part of the problem here. But
part of it.
Okay, so that was very interesting. If you're Bernie Sanders trying to come back at Joe Biden and some of the other moderates. But let's talk about some other value-based campaign versus needs-based and some tragic language. Isn't Elizabeth Warren struggling here?
I'm so glad you brought her up, because that was the next person I was thinking about talking about. Is that one of the biggest challenges that Elizabeth Warren faces is that she's stuck in a narrative called "I have a policy for that" or "I have a plan for that." And whether a person has a plan for something or not, doesn't have a plan for something. The problem with the plan is a nuanced implementation or an execution of a vision. Her vision needs to be spoken about, not her plan, and that she has one. So what winds up happening is that in order for somebody to follow a policy, they've got to actually engage inspiration before they follow a policy. Let me show you how that works energetically. I want to be inspired by the work that I do. So let's imagine that I want to go into police work. I want to be a police person. And I really like the rules. I like law and order. I want to protect people. I like to serve people. I'd like to stand for the rule of law. I don't like it when people make mistakes and people get hurt by that. And so I want to go into law enforcement. So the value is service. The need is protection. So it's no mistake that many police departments have to protect and serve. See, there's a protection piece and then there's a serve piece. It doesn't say to catch criminals. It doesn't say that. This is my job, to catch criminals, to catch people breaking the rule, to catch people speeding. That's not what it says on the side of their car. It says to protect, which looks like if somebody is speeding, then I need to do something about it. To serve, if I see somebody that's hurt or needs help, I'm going to pull over, turn my lights on the car so that I can serve the community and the public. Notice the value, protect and serve, has got to come to the front. The policy that the police department follows has got to be in alignment with that need or that value.
So arresting people that are breaking the law is the plan for how you protect and serve the rest, or the tactics for how you do it. Tactics don't get people excited to vote for you, do they?
They do not. So, and this is why the discussion regarding nuance can't be had on a debate stage. But a needs-based narrative would look great. It might sound like this. Just like, from Elizabeth Warren's standpoint, just like Senator Sanders, we need to care for each individual here on the United States. And no matter what you hear from the other side, there is enough money for this thing. This thing can be done. We are a caring nation, a nation that cares for the citizens and the people that want to be citizens here in the United States. This is what care looks like. And Senator Sanders and I stand in a similar position to get that done. Now, everyone else on the field is out. They're now looking in the rearview mirror really quick, going like, how'd the door get open and I get shoved out? And I'm watching the image of my face leave in the mirror, because what he just did was, we're coalescing around caring for Americans.
And everybody else who doesn't agree with us must not care for Americans is the implication, right?
Right. They don't care enough to do what Bernie says, fight the big drug companies. That's not a vision. Take on the billionaires. That's not as much a vision as fairness is. If this person is paying 25% in taxes, then this other person is paying 25% in taxes. If this person's paying 13% in taxes, then this rich person is paying 13% in taxes. That's what fairness looks like. And that's why a vote for me will engage fairness. I didn't say I'm going to take a rich person out into a woodshed and take all their money. I just said 13% of it or 25% of it. That's what I said. Just the same as the person that's slugging it out at McDonald's. Hey, listen, if you're working at a fast food restaurant, right now you're paying this much in taxes. Are you going to stay home and not vote for fairness? Are you going to vote for fairness? If you vote for fairness, come out and vote for fairness. If you would like more fairness to take place, you may want to consider me and Senator Warren. But if you'd like less fairness, you might want to vote for some of the other candidates.
Their heads would spin. That happened on the debate stage.
You want your moment? You want your moment? Use a needs-based narrative if you want your moment.
How do none of these candidates who have achieved so much in their lives and accomplished so much, how do they have such a lack of awareness of this?
Of communication skills, yeah. They've been rewarded for hard work. They've been rewarded for chutzpah. They've been rewarded for persistence. I mean, there's one thing that you got to give to Trump. He is persistent.
That's for sure.
He's persistent. He's diligent. He will move the cup on you. As soon as he puts the ball under the cup, he moves the cup and says, the ball's under this cup. He's persistent. Very, very good. Very good at moving the cup.
Three-card Monty.
Three-card Monty, man. Yeah.
Well,
Crazy,
and you have to, I think, respect somebody like Bloomberg for having actually run one of the largest cities in the world that's,
right,
economically and culturally and ethnically diverse.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's not easy running New York City, and especially in a post 9/11 era, and, with a hyper need for safety and security and, all the things that were taking place then.
It is if you set a clear vision for each department. Do you see how that landed with a thump?
Yeah, it's good.
Bill, it's, you got to give them something. It's not, no, you go to the police department and say, what are your recommendations and what do your frontline people think that they need to do to reduce crime here at 30%? They bring up suggestions to say, well, let's pick this one. Let's try this one out.
Happens to be, of course,
that one, then that one happens to be stop and frisk. And they said, that's what the recommendation is that what we got to do is we've got to increase our presence and the seriousness of our presence. See, I think that those certain populations weren't trusting the police department. And one way to get them to trust is to observe other people getting arrested, or there's some action to send a greater narrative. The police in this area are active. Now, all of a sudden, I am now giving the speech that Bloomberg should have given when he was first asked the question.
Because he talks about the situation, the context, the need at the time. You're talking about much more than just the tactic.
I'll be Bloomberg for a second.
Okay.
We needed to decrease crime anywhere between 30 to 50% in some of these areas. We went to our leadership. We talked it over with leadership. And what good leaders do is they listen to the front line and they take things. One of the recommendations that came up, as a part of our team, we made the decision to take this tactic. Regrettably, over time, we did not move off that tactic into something that was more positive. And some officers, not to say there's anything wrong with those officers, were still following a policy that we needed to move off sooner. Sometimes leadership is slow to make changes. Just like what we're facing at the federal level, that sometimes leadership is slow to make changes, and that's why you should vote for me for president. We can move off of changes and make changes quicker, much quicker than needed to take place at the stop and frisk. But at the bigger level, we need to make bigger changes to take place. And as a leader, that's something that lesson really taught me.
Wow. Now you've shown experience, lesson learned, flexibility, improvement, all sorts of things.
Now, if I want to pound on Trump and I'm Elizabeth Warren, I can then pick that thread up for Bloomberg, and they should start working like a damn team up there. Just saying. You're right, Mayor Bloomberg. You're right. We do need to learn. And one of the things that we've learned about this administration and President Trump is that he has fired and let go of seasoned professionals that are skilled, that have had years of experience without even consulting anybody else but himself and his given few people. He is so isolated with his decision making that he does not know how to ask for what the best thing is at the front line that needs to take place and use that as an advantage. No, he wants to be known as the decision maker, and that's why we're in the trouble that we're in. And anybody on this stage, including myself, would be a better fit than he in the office. Cooperation, collaboration, leadership, decision making, respect, making sure people are being heard. Come on, Elizabeth, get on it. Use that degree.
Goodness, seriously.
Come on, Bloomberg, use the money. Use your wisdom. Come on, Bernie, adjust your narrative just 5% and you own this. Come on, Pete.
Well,
get some better advisors.
Whoever gets this nomination, sure better practice and get some skills for that general election and those debates, because they could so easily mop the floor up with Trump, make it look like he, show his true colors in reality, because he's so easy. He's like a moth to a flame. It's not that hard to get him to put himself in a corner.
He walks the plank, and people let him come back and, oh yeah, he just pushed me off into the sharks. Here, let me swim out of the sharks. Oh, I just made it. I'm now in the little dinghy out here with no food and water. It's like, ooh.
And it is really around the values, isn't it? It's the value-based narrative and the needs-based narrative that will lead you there if you just have enough presence of mind to think about it in that way and to identify the values and the needs and to talk about them.
Yeah. So this is one of the difficulties, because black and white thinking versus nuance thinking, creating a definitive narrative based on a value or based on a need that can create a lot of inspiration about the policies that you want to take to move forward. Can create a lot of inspiration around that. So, we've been at this for a little while, and I think the next time that we get together, Tom, we talk about framing, framing what the nation will look like as President Trump leaves the office. Talk about the framing of what America is going to look like. Paint the picture if he stays. Gosh, you know what? If he stays, I think that one of the things that Americans are going to start experiencing is these things are going to happen next, and be a little bit of the predictor of it. And the reason why you want to be the predictor of it, of what the next 4 years of Trump's going to look like, is because if you do not win, it gives you the opportunity to run again, because you told everybody what was coming, and then all of a sudden it showed up. I told you guys it was coming. You didn't elect me. You may want to elect me this time. Right. Here are the 5 things I said that was going to take place. Here's what happened in the judges. Here's what happened in the business world. Here's what happened in healthcare. Here's what happened here's what happened.
Wow.
And so you may want to get out. So I think Pete could do probably the better job of that, because here's what's going to happen. He probably could get a hold of that a little bit better, but because some of the experienced people are just trying to hold the system together mentally because of their own belief structures. But Pete's thinking, Mayor Pete's thinking, has a little bit more nuance and a little bit more flexibility just start painting the picture. Hey, if you don't elect me, if you elect one of these folks here are some things that you can think about them. I probably wouldn't go there, but I would start painting the picture about Trump.
I like that idea. And to set the vision of what it will look like when he leaves office and what it will look like if he doesn't. You sort of set yourself up for success either way if you would do that as a candidate.
That's right. That's the thing, is we got to set ourselves up for success. That's good.
All right. Great,
All right,
Bill.
Tom, look forward to the next one.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.